General Sam Parker stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching red dots appear on the tactical display like a spreading disease. Each dot represented a Zephyrian fleet that had just revealed itself in human space. There were hundreds of them. "Sir, we're getting reports from all sectors," said Colonel Amy Davis, her voice tight with controlled tension. "The enemy has simultaneous attacks running on 47 different systems. They've been planning this for a very long time." Sam nodded grimly. As Chief of Terrestrial Defense Forces, he had always known this day might come. His grandmother had fought in the original war against the Zephyrians, and she had taught him that peace was just the time between wars. "What's our response time looking like?" he asked. "Most of our patrol fleets are scrambling to respond, but they're outnumbered at least 5-1 in every engagement," Colonel Davis replied. "The outer colonies are taking heavy damage. New Sydney went dark 20 minutes ago. On the main screen, Admiral Morrison's face appeared via emergency transmission from Earth Station Alpha. Behind him, fires burned and people ran through smoke-filled corridors. "Sam, we need those planetary defenses online now. The Zephyrians have 15 battle groups heading directly for Earth." "Already on it, Jake," Sam replied, turning to a massive control panel. "Computer, activate Continental Defense Grid. Authorization Parker 77 Alpha." "Defense Grid activated," the computer responded in its calm voice. "All planetary batteries are now online." Across Earth's surface, thousands of hidden structures began to rise from the ground. Mountains split open to reveal massive gun barrels. Desert floors slid aside to show missile silos the size of city blocks. The ocean floors shifted as underwater defense platforms activated. Colonel Davis stared at the display showing the awakening defenses. "Sir, I've served for 20 years and I never knew we had weapons like this." Sam smiled for the first time since the alert began. "That was the point, Colonel. 3,000 years is a long time to prepare. We learned from the first war that the Zephyrians are dangerous. We decided never to be caught off guard again." Captain Ryan Burke's voice crackled over the communication system from his stealth frigate UES Shadowhunter. "General Parker, you need to see what I'm picking up on long-range sensors. The Zephyrian fleets are massive, but they're not built for what they think they're fighting." "Explain," Sam ordered. "They're using the same basic ship designs from the original war, just bigger and with more weapons. It's like they expected to fight the same humans they fought 3,000 years ago." Dr. Tony Mills entered the war room, carrying a briefcase that required 3 different security codes to open. As Director of Advanced Weapons Research, he had been waiting for this day his entire career. "General, I need authorization to activate Project Deep Strike," Dr. Mills said, placing the briefcase on the main table. Sam looked at the doctor seriously. "Tony, once we open that box, there's no going back. The Zephyrians will know exactly what humanity is capable of. Sir, with respect, they declared war on us. I think it's time they learned what we've been working on for the last 3 millennia." Sam nodded and placed his hand on the biometric scanner. "Project Deep Strike is authorized. God help us all." Dr. Mills opened the briefcase and activated a communication device inside. "All Deep Strike facilities, this is Mills. Authorization confirmed. Begin Phase 1 deployment immediately." Throughout human space, asteroid mining stations began to transform. What had appeared to be simple industrial facilities revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms. Cargo ships suddenly sprouted gun turrets from hidden compartments. Even luxury passenger liners began broadcasting military identification codes. Colonel Davis watched the display in amazement as hundreds of hidden military assets appeared on the tactical map. "How long have we been preparing for this?" "Since the day the Treaty of Titan was signed," Sam replied. "Our leaders knew the Zephyrians were dangerous. They decided that if peace was going to last, humanity needed to be ready for war." Reports started coming in from the first engagements. Captain Ben Rodriguez, commanding the battleship UES Iron Will, sent a transmission from the battle near Jupiter's moons. "General Parker, you won't believe this." Ben's voice was filled with excitement. "The Zephyrians attacked what they thought was a cargo convoy heading to Europa. Turns out those cargo ships were actually disguised destroyers. The alien fleet got torn apart in less than 10 minutes. More good news followed. The Zephyrian attack on the Mars shipyards had been stopped cold when the supposedly civilian orbital platforms revealed themselves to be heavily armed battle stations. Enemy forces approaching the Alpha Centauri system found themselves facing a minefield that had been secretly placed over the course of centuries. But the biggest surprise came when the Zephyrian main fleet reached Earth's outer defense perimeter. Admiral Zextherin himself led the attack, commanding a dreadnought the size of a small moon. His forces expected to sweep aside whatever pathetic defenses humanity could throw together in a few hours. Instead, they ran into the continental defense grid. The first salvo from Earth's hidden weapons platforms lit up space like a new sun. Particle beams that could cut through a mountain struck the Zephyrian ships with pinpoint accuracy. Missile swarms that had been stockpiled for centuries turned enemy formations into expanding clouds of debris. Colonel Davis monitored the battle from the command center. "Sir, the enemy flagship is taking heavy damage. Their shields are failing. Keep firing," Sam ordered. "I want them to understand that this isn't the same humanity they fought before." Zextherin's voice came over the open communication channels, his musical tone now filled with shock and rage. "This is impossible. Your species was weak. Your technology was primitive." Admiral Morrison responded from Earth Station Alpha, which had revealed its own hidden weapon systems. "Ambassador, you made one critical mistake. You assumed that 3,000 years of peace meant 3,000 years of doing nothing. Humans don't work that way. The battle for Earth lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Zephyrian attack fleet was scattered wreckage floating in the void. Zextherin's flagship limped away, badly damaged but still functional. Captain Ryan Burke reported from his stealth position near the retreating enemy forces. "General, I'm picking up massive communication traffic from the Zephyrian fleet. They're calling for reinforcements from their home territories." Sam studied the tactical display, watching red dots representing enemy fleets throughout human space. Many of them were already retreating after suffering heavy casualties. "Good, let them call for help. It's time they learned what happens when you wake up a sleeping giant." Dr. Mills checked his datapad and smiled. "Sir, Phase 1 was just the warm-up. Phase 2 involves our real military assets." Colonel Davis looked confused. "Real military assets? What have we been fighting with?" Sam's smile was cold as winter. "Mostly civilian ships with hidden weapons and automated defense platforms. Our actual war fleet has been hidden in deep space for the last 1,000 years, waiting for this exact moment." He turned to the communication panel and spoke clearly. "Fleet Command, this is General Parker. Authorization code Avalanche. Activate all deep space assets and begin full mobilization." Across the galaxy, massive shipyards that had been disguised as asteroid fields began to reveal themselves. Ships that had been hidden in the space between stars powered up their engines. Weapons that had been tested in secret for centuries prepared for their first real combat. The Zephyrians had wanted a war. Now they were going to get one. Fleet Admiral Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the UES Titan's Revenge, watching as the largest human fleet in history assembled around him. Ships emerged from the darkness between stars like awakening giants. Each vessel represented centuries of secret construction and planning. "Admiral, final count shows 2,347 ships ready for Operation Steel Storm," reported Dr. Maria Santos, chief engineer of the Hidden Titan shipyards. "Every single one is equipped with technology the Zephyrians have never seen." Alex nodded, studying the tactical display that showed Zephyrian forces throughout human space. The aliens had been busy for 3,000 years, but so had humanity. "What's the status on our new weapons systems?" "All quantum torpedo launchers are loaded and ready," Dr. Santos replied. "The new armor plating has been tested against everything the Zephyrians used in the First War. Their weapons shouldn't even scratch our paint." Major Luke Thompson's voice came over the communication system from the surface of Proxima B, where Zephyrian ground forces had landed 3 days earlier. "Fleet Admiral, my mech units are in position. The enemy has no idea what's about to hit them." The Major commanded the first deployment of humanity's new combat mechs. These giant machines stood 30 feet tall and carried enough firepower to level a city block. They had been developed in secret facilities throughout human space, tested in hidden training grounds that didn't officially exist. "Remember, Luke, we want prisoners this time," Alex said. "Intelligence Officer Walsh needs to know what other surprises the Zephyrians might have planned." Nina Walsh was currently deep undercover somewhere in Zephyrian space, having volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human military history. Her reports over the last few days had revealed the true scope of the alien threat. The Battle of Proxima began at dawn on the colony world. Major Thompson led his mech squadron out of hidden bunkers that the Zephyrians had never detected. The aliens had occupied the main city, confident that human ground forces would be as weak as they remembered from the ancient war. They were wrong. The first Zephyrian patrol to encounter a human combat mech sent panicked messages back to their commanders. The 30-foot-tall machine walked through their heaviest weapons fire without taking damage. When it returned fire, entire buildings vanished in explosions of superheated plasma. "This is impossible," came the translated Zephyrian communication that human intelligence intercepted. The humans didn't have machines like this before. Where did they come from? Major Thompson's mech, nicknamed Big Steel by his crew, smashed through the center of the occupied city. Behind him, a dozen more mechs spread out to surround the enemy positions. Each machine was operated by a pilot who had trained for decades in secret facilities. "Target the command center," Thompson ordered over the tactical network. "Let's cut the head off this snake." The Zephyrian command post, set up in what used to be the colony's city hall, disappeared under a barrage of mech weapons fire. Enemy forces scattered in all directions, no longer able to coordinate their defense. In space above Proxima, Fleet Admiral Turner watched the battle through satellite feeds. The Zephyrian ground forces were being systematically destroyed by weapons they had no defense against. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from Intelligence Officer Walsh," reported the communications specialist. "It's heavily encrypted and coming through the deep space relay network." Alex activated his personal communication terminal. Nina's face appeared on the screen, but the image was distorted by the long-distance transmission. Behind her, he could see what looked like the interior of a Zephyrian ship. "Admiral, I've penetrated their command structure," Nina reported quietly. "What I've learned changes everything. The Zephyrians aren't just fighting humanity. They're fighting a war on 3 fronts." "Explain," Alex ordered. "There are 2 other species that the Zephyrians have been attacking, the Corvan Empire and something called the Helix Collective. Both of those wars are going badly for the aliens. They're desperate, and they thought conquering humanity would give them the resources they need to win their other fights." Alex processed this information quickly. "So they're not as strong as they want us to believe." "That's correct, sir. Also, their ship production is centered around 3 massive shipyard complexes. If we could hit those targets, we could cripple their ability to replace losses." The transmission ended as Nina's cover required her to move. Alex turned to Dr. Santos and smiled grimly. "Maria, how fast can we get our Dreadnought-class ships ready for combat?" Dr. Santos checked her datapad. "The UES Ragnarok is ready now. The other super dreadnoughts will need another week to complete final systems checks." "One will have to do for now," Alex decided. "Send orders to Captain Helen Foster. It's time to test our biggest guns." The UES Ragnarok was a ship that defied belief. As long as a city and heavily armed enough to destroy a moon, it represented the peak of human military engineering. It had been under construction for over 500 years, built in a secret shipyard hidden in an asteroid field beyond Pluto. Captain Helen Foster received her orders with grim satisfaction. She had been waiting her entire career for the chance to command humanity's most powerful warship in actual combat. "All stations, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's internal communication system. "We are about to engage the enemy for the first time. Remember your training, trust your equipment, and show these aliens what 3,000 years of human engineering can accomplish." The Ragnarok's first target was the Zephyrian fleet that had attacked the outer colony of New Vancouver. The aliens had overwhelmed the colony's defenses and were busy setting up occupation forces on the planet's surface. When the Ragnarok dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, every sensor in the area detected its massive energy signature. The ship was so large that it affected local gravity fields just by existing. The Zephyrian fleet commander sent a communication to the human ship. "Unidentified vessel, you are outnumbered 20 to 1. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to the ancient accords." Captain Foster's response was simple. "This is Captain Helen Foster of the United Earth ship Ragnarok. You have invaded human space and attacked our colonies. Prepare to face the consequences." The first salvo from the Ragnarok's main guns lit up the entire star system. Energy beams that could crack a planet's crust struck the Zephyrian fleet with devastating effect. Ships that had seemed invincible just moments before were reduced to glowing wreckage in seconds. The entire engagement lasted less than 10 minutes. When it was over, the Zephyrian fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped to report what they had seen. Back on Proxima B, Major Thompson received reports that the orbital battle was over. All mech units, the sky is clear. Let's finish mopping up these ground forces and go home. His combat mech stepped over the wreckage of what used to be a Zephyrian tank. The alien vehicle's armor, which had seemed so impressive, had been no match for human plasma cannons. Fleet Admiral Turner studied the reports coming in from across human space. The pattern was becoming clear. Wherever human forces engaged the Zephyrians with their new weapons and tactics, the aliens were being defeated decisively. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 different Zephyrian commanders, reported the communications specialist. They're asking for terms. Alex shook his head. Tell them to contact General Parker on Earth. We're not accepting partial surrenders. This war ends when their entire government gives up, not before. Dr. Santos looked up from her engineering station. Sir, our intelligence networks are reporting massive troop movements in Zephyrian space. They're pulling forces back from their other wars to fight us. Good, Alex replied. That means the Corvin Empire and the Helix Collective will have some breathing room. Maybe they'll remember who helped them when this is all over. The war was far from finished, but the tide had clearly turned. The Zephyrians had expected to fight the same weak humans they remembered from 3,000 years ago. Instead, they found themselves facing a species that had spent every day of those 3 millennia preparing for exactly this moment. Admiral Turner looked out at the fleet surrounding his flagship. 2,000 ships carrying the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, crewed by people who had been training for this war since childhood. Send a message to all ships, he ordered. Next stop is the Zephyrian home system. It's time to finish what they started. Captain Helen Foster stood in the command center of the UES Ragnarok as her massive ship led the largest human battle fleet in history toward the Zephyrian home system. Around her super dreadnought, over 3,000 human vessels moved through space like a mechanical storm. Captain, we're receiving updated intelligence from Officer Walsh, reported the communications specialist. She's identified the locations of the 3 major Zephyrian shipyards that Intelligence Officer Walsh discovered. Helen studied the tactical display showing the enemy home system. 3 enormous construction facilities orbited different planets, each one capable of building hundreds of warships simultaneously. Destroying them would cripple the alien war effort. Dr. Chris Mitchell, the quantum weapons specialist, approached with his latest test results. Captain, the new quantum torpedoes are ready for full-scale deployment. Each one carries enough destructive power to level a city. The Zephyrians have never seen anything like them. How many do we have? Helen asked. Enough to destroy their entire fleet twice over, Dr. Mitchell replied with satisfaction. The manufacturing facilities have been working around the clock for the past week. Commander Jack Stone's voice came over the communication system from his stealth ship UES Shadow Strike. Captain Foster, my special operations teams are in position around the enemy shipyards. We've planted charges on their main power systems. When you give the word, those facilities will go dark. Jack commanded the most elite soldiers in human space. His teams could infiltrate any target, sabotage any facility, and escape without being detected. They had been training for missions like this for decades. Excellent work, Commander, Helen replied. Stand by for the signal. Captain Lisa Wade checked in from her experimental fighter bomber UES Valkyrie. Captain, atmospheric reconnaissance shows heavy Zephyrian defensive positions on all 3 inhabited planets. My squadron is ready to clear the way for ground forces. Lisa's ship represented the cutting edge of human aviation technology. Faster than anything the Zephyrians had ever built, it could operate in space or atmosphere with equal effectiveness. Her squadron had been specifically designed to support this kind of large-scale invasion. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zephyrian home system. Immediately, alarm signals began broadcasting on all enemy frequencies. The aliens had never seen a force this large approaching their most important worlds. Admiral Zextheron himself commanded the system's defenses from his flagship, the massive dreadnought Inevitable Victory. Despite the defeats his forces had suffered in human space, he still believed that defending their home system would give the Zephyrians the advantage they needed. Human fleet, this is Admiral Zextheron, came the familiar musical voice over the communication channels. You have entered sacred Zephyrian space. Leave now or face the full might of our home defense fleets. Captain Foster's response was broadcast to every ship in both fleets. Admiral, you declared war on humanity. You attacked our worlds and killed our people. Now you face the consequences. Surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. The Zephyrian home defense fleet was impressive. Over 800 ships of various sizes, supported by orbital defense platforms and planetary weapon systems. It was the largest concentration of alien military power in their entire empire. But the human fleet was larger, better equipped and commanded by officers who had been planning this exact battle for centuries. All ships. This is Captain Foster, Helen announced to the human fleet. Begin Operation Hammerfall. Show them what 3,000 years of preparation looks like. The battle began with a massive barrage from the human fleet's long-range weapons. Quantum torpedoes streaked across space, their exotic energy signatures invisible to Zephyrian sensors until the moment of impact. When they struck enemy ships, the results were devastating. Dr. Mitchell watched his weapons perform in actual combat for the first time. Captain, the quantum torpedoes are exceeding all performance expectations. Enemy shields are useless against them. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible just moments before were being torn apart by weapons that operated on principles their science didn't understand. The aliens' energy shields, which had protected them for millennia, might as well have been made of paper. Commander Stone's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, charges detonated successfully. All 3 shipyards are without power. They're sitting ducks for your guns. Lisa, you're clear for atmospheric operations, Helen ordered. Take out their planetary defenses. Captain Wade's fighter squadron screamed into the atmosphere of the main Zephyrian world at speeds that should have torn their ships apart. But human engineering had solved problems that alien science couldn't even imagine. The Zephyrian air defense network had been designed to stop ships moving at conventional speeds. Lisa's experimental fighters moved so fast that they were through the defensive grid before the aliens could react. Target their command centers, Lisa ordered her squadron. Cut off the head and the body dies. Plasma bombs dropped from the human fighters destroyed Zephyrian military installations across the planet's surface. Communications towers, radar stations, and missile sites vanished in explosions of superheated gas. In space, the main battle had turned into a massacre. The human fleet's advanced weapons and superior tactics were overwhelming the Zephyrian defenders. Admiral Zextheron's flagship found itself surrounded by human ships, taking damage from all directions. This is impossible. The alien admiral's voice carried panic for the first time since the war began. Your weapons shouldn't be this powerful. Your technology was primitive. Captain Foster's response was cold and professional. Admiral, you made the same mistake that your people have been making for 3,000 years. You assumed that humans would stay the same. We don't. The UES Ragnarok's main guns targeted the inevitable victory. When they fired, the energy beams cut through the alien dreadnought's armor like it was made of soft metal. Secondary explosions rippled along the enemy ship's hull as its weapon systems overloaded. Admiral Zextheron, your flagship is crippled, Helen announced. Surrender now and your crew will be spared. But the Zephyrian admiral's pride wouldn't allow surrender. Never. The Zephyrian Empire will never bow to inferior species. Then you've made your choice, Helen replied sadly. Target their bridge. End this. The final salvo from the Ragnarok's gun struck the inevitable victory's command section. The massive alien ship broke apart in a series of explosions that lit up the entire system. With their admiral dead and their flagship destroyed, the remaining Zephyrian forces began to surrender. White flags appeared on enemy communication channels as ship after ship gave up the fight. Commander Stone reported from the captured shipyards. Captain, we've secured all 3 construction facilities. The Zephyrians won't be building any more ships for a long time. Captain Wade's fighters had completed their atmospheric missions. Surface targets eliminated, Captain. The planet's defenses are completely neutralized. Dr. Mitchell checked his weapon readouts. Captain, we've used less than 30% of our quantum torpedo stockpile. The enemy was even weaker than our worst-case scenarios predicted. Helen looked at the tactical display showing the wreckage of the Zephyrian home defense fleet. In less than 6 hours, human forces had destroyed the largest alien military concentration in their empire. All ships, this is Captain Foster, she announced to the human fleet. The Zephyrian home system is secure. Begin occupation procedures and prepare for the next phase. Intelligence Officer Nina Walsh's face appeared on the communication screen, broadcasting from a captured Zephyrian command post. Captain, I've accessed their strategic databases. The aliens have been in communication with their government throughout the battle. They're ready to discuss surrender terms. Helen nodded. Patch me through to whoever is in charge of their government now. A new Zephyrian voice came over the communication system, this one trembling with fear. Human fleet, this is Prime Minister Kexavalan of the Zephyrian High Council. We wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Prime Minister, Helen replied. You have exactly one option. Unconditional surrender of all Zephyrian military forces, followed by reparations for the damage your war has caused. There will be no negotiations. The long pause that followed told Helen everything she needed to know about the alien situation. They had gambled everything on a quick victory over what they thought would be weak human defenses. Now they faced the complete destruction of their civilization. We accept your terms, came the defeated reply. The Zephyrian Empire surrenders unconditionally. Captain Foster looked out at the stars surrounding the conquered system. 3,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had proven that it would never again be caught unprepared for war. Send a message to Earth, she ordered. Tell them that the Zephyrian threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is safe for human expansion. The age of human supremacy was about to begin. The golden halls of Earth Station Alpha gleamed under artificial sunlight as thousands gathered for the greatest celebration in human history. Today marked exactly 3,000 years since the Treaty of Titan ended the bloodiest war humanity had ever fought. Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck, watching ships from across human space arrive for the ceremony. Hard to believe it's been so long, said Dr. Lisa Grant, joining him at the window. The military historian carried a thick datapad filled with records from the ancient war. My great-great-grandmother lived through the original conflict. She always said the peace wouldn't last forever. Jake smiled and adjusted his dress uniform. Well, she was wrong. 3,000 years is pretty close to forever. He pointed to the massive Zephyrian vessel approaching the station. Look at that beauty. Ambassador Zextheron always travels in style. The alien ship looked like a crystal mountain floating through space. Its blue hull reflected the light from nearby stars, creating patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. It had taken decades for humans to get used to Zephyrian architecture after the war ended. Captain Ben Rodriguez walked up behind them, his boots clicking on the metal floor. All security teams are in position, Admiral, though I still think having so many VIPs in one place is asking for trouble. Relax, Ben, Jake replied. The Zephyrians have been our friends for longer than most civilizations have existed. What could go wrong? Commander Kate Sullivan hurried toward them, her face pale. As head of strategic intelligence, she rarely showed emotion. Admiral, we're receiving some strange signals from the Outer Rim colonies. Several ships went dark about an hour ago. Jake frowned. Equipment failures? Maybe, but the pattern is odd. It's like they all stopped broadcasting at exactly the same time. Kate handed him a data tablet. I've sent scout ships to investigate, but they won't reach those systems for another 6 hours. Before Jake could respond, the station's speakers crackled to life. Attention all personnel. Ambassador Zextheran has arrived and requests immediate audience with Admiral Morrison. All celebration events are to proceed as planned. The group made their way to the main ceremonial hall. Thousands of humans filled the massive space, along with delegations from every world in human territory. Banners hung from the ceiling showing the symbols of peace that had defined the last 3 millennia. Ambassador Zextheron entered through the main doors, his tall form moving with the strange grace that all Zephyrians possessed. His skin shifted between blue and silver as emotions played across his features. Behind him walked 6 other Zephyrians, all wearing what looked like ceremonial robes. Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly, following the ancient protocols. Ambassador, welcome to our celebration. It is an honor to have you here on this historic day. Zextheron's large eyes fixed on Jake. When he spoke, his voice carried the musical quality that made Zephyrian speech so pleasant to human ears. Admiral Morrison. Yes, this day is indeed historic. More historic than you realize. Something in the alien's tone made Jake's stomach tighten. Dr. Grant stepped closer, her historian's instincts picking up on the subtle wrongness in the ambassador's words. I bring greetings from the Zephyrian High Council, the ambassador continued, and also their final message to humanity. The hall fell silent. Even the background hum of the station system seemed to quiet down. Jake felt sweat forming under his uniform collar. Final message? Jake asked carefully. Zexthuran's skin shifted to a deep red color that humans had learned meant anger or aggression. The Treaty of Titan is hereby declared null and void. The Zephyrian Confederation considers itself at war with all human worlds as of this moment. The words hit the crowd like a physical blow. Shocked gasps echoed through the hall. Several people stumbled backward. Jake's mind raced, trying to process what he had just heard. "You can't be serious," Dr. Grant said, stepping forward. 3,000 years of peace. Billions of lives rebuilt. Trade, culture, friendship between our species. The ambassador's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Friendship? You naive creatures. We have spent these 3,000 years preparing. Every day, every year, we have grown stronger while you grew soft and weak." Captain Rodriguez's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Jake caught his wrist. Starting a firefight here would only make things worse. Commander Sullivan's communication device began beeping frantically. She pressed it to her ear, her face growing paler by the second. "Admiral," she whispered urgently, "Fleet Command is reporting massive energy signatures throughout human space. Ships are decloaking everywhere. It's a coordinated attack." Zexthuran heard her words, and his skin color shifted to what humans had learned was satisfaction. "Your outer colonies are already burning. Your merchant ships are debris. In 6 of your hours, most human worlds will be under Zephyrian control." Jake's training finally kicked in. He activated his emergency communicator and spoke clearly into it. "All stations, this is Admiral Morrison. Code red, full military alert. This is not a drill." Alarms began blaring throughout the station. The celebration crowd panicked, people running in all directions. Security teams moved to surround the Zephyrian delegation. "You think your pathetic defenses will stop us?" Zexthuran asked, seeming amused. "We remember how weak your species was 3,000 years ago. We have prepared for this war since the day you signed that foolish treaty." Dr. Grant stared at the ambassador with growing horror. "You never intended peace to last. This was all planned." "Of course it was planned," Zexthuran replied. "We needed time to rebuild our fleets, time to study your weaknesses, time to position our forces throughout your territory. You humans are so trusting, so eager to believe in friendship." More reports flooded in through Commander Sullivan's device. Zephyrian fleets had appeared near Earth, Mars, the Jupiter colonies, and dozens of other major human worlds. The attack was happening everywhere at once. "Why now?" Jake asked, still trying to understand. "Why break a treaty that has lasted so long?" Zexthuran's skin shifted to a pattern that meant supreme confidence. "Because now we are ready. Our fleets are 3 times larger than they were before. Our weapons are more advanced. Your species has grown comfortable and weak. This war will last weeks, not decades." Jake looked around the hall at the panicked faces of his people. 3,000 years of peace were ending in fire and betrayal, but something in his gut told him the Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake. "Maybe," Jake said quietly, "but you might be surprised at what humans can do when we're angry." The ambassador laughed again. "We shall see, Admiral. We shall see." Outside the station's windows, the first explosions began to light up the darkness of space. President Martha Collins stood before the United Earth Assembly, looking out at representatives from every human world in the galaxy. Behind her, a massive screen showed the complete tactical situation across known space. Red zones marked former Zephyrian territory, now under human military control. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying to billions of people watching across human space. 3 weeks ago, the Zephyrian Empire declared war on humanity after 3,000 years of peace. Today, that empire no longer exists. Applause filled the assembly hall, but Martha raised her hand for silence. "We did not seek this war, but when it came to us, we responded with the full strength that 3 millennia of preparation had given us." Grand Admiral Peter Hayes stepped forward to present the final military report. As the overall commander of human forces, he had coordinated the largest military operation in galactic history. "Madam President, I can report that all Zephyrian military forces have surrendered unconditionally," he announced. "Their home system is under our control, their shipyards are destroyed, and their remaining fleets have been disarmed." Dr. Susan Clark, the chief diplomatic advisor, approached with the surrender documents. "The Zephyrian High Council has signed a complete surrender agreement. They accept full responsibility for starting this war and agree to pay reparations for all damage caused." Martha nodded, but her expression remained serious. "What about their other wars?" Intelligence reports suggested they were fighting on multiple fronts. The Corvin Empire and the Helix Collective have both sent diplomatic missions to Earth, Dr. Clark replied. They want to establish formal relations with humanity. Apparently, our victory over the Zephyrians has impressed them greatly. Commander Dan Roberts entered the assembly hall, still wearing his battle-worn uniform from the final assault on Zephyrian Prime. As captain of the UES Judgment, he had led the orbital bombardment that finally broke alien resistance on their homeworld. Madam President, he reported, the occupation of Zephyrian Prime is complete. Their capital city has surrendered, and their government has been placed under human military administration. Martha turned to face the assembly again. The question before us now is what kind of galaxy we want to build. For 3,000 years we prepared for war while hoping for peace. Now that we have achieved total victory, what do we do with it? Grand Admiral Hayes consulted his datapad. Madam President, our military analysis suggests that humanity is now the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. No known species has the technology or numbers to challenge us. That's exactly what I'm worried about, Martha replied. Power without wisdom leads to tyranny. We've seen what happened when the Zephyrians thought they were the strongest species around. Dr. Clark stepped forward with her diplomatic assessment. Madam President, our intelligence networks have identified at least 12 other spacefaring civilizations within our expanded territory. Most of them are much smaller than either humanity or the former Zephyrian Empire. What are they doing now that word of our victory has spread? Martha asked. They're all sending diplomatic missions to Earth. Dr. Clark replied with a slight smile. It seems that everyone wants to be friends with the species that destroyed the Zephyrians in 3 weeks. Commander Roberts cleared his throat. Madam President, if I may, the troops who fought this war have a perspective that might be valuable. Please, Commander. What do your people think? They think we proved something important, Roberts replied. Not just that we're strong, but that we're smart. 3,000 years of preparation, hidden shipyards, secret weapons, long-term thinking. That's what won this war. Grand Admiral Hayes nodded in agreement. The commander is right. This victory wasn't just about having better weapons. It was about having better planning. The Zephyrians thought in terms of decades. We thought in terms of millennia. Martha looked at the tactical display again. Red zones showing conquered territory stretched across a significant portion of the galaxy. How many worlds are we talking about? 417 inhabited planets, Dr. Clark replied, plus countless mining operations, space stations, and research facilities. The logistics of managing all this are staggering. And the population? Approximately 200 billion Zephyrians across all their worlds, Dr. Clark continued. They're all now under human authority. Martha felt the weight of that responsibility settling on her shoulders. 200 billion lives now depended on human decisions. What are our options for governing this territory? Grand Admiral Hayes stepped forward. Military occupation is the traditional approach. Keep our forces in place, maintain order, gradually transition to civilian administration. That could take centuries, Dr. Clark pointed out, and it would require keeping massive military forces deployed indefinitely. What's the alternative? Martha asked. Autonomous governance under human oversight, Dr. Clark suggested. Let the Zephyrians run their own worlds, but with human observers to ensure they comply with the surrender terms. Commander Roberts shook his head. With respect, Doctor, these are the same people who spent 3,000 years planning to attack us. Can we trust them with self-governance? Martha turned to address the assembly directly. This is the choice that will define humanity's future in the galaxy. Do we rule through fear like the Zephyrians tried to do? Or do we find a better way? A representative from the Mars colonies stood up. Madam President, what about the other species? The ones the Zephyrians were fighting? The Corvin Empire has already sent an official thank you for our intervention, Dr. Clark replied. They've offered to share technology and establish trade relations. The Helix Collective has made similar overtures. That's encouraging, Martha said. What about the smaller civilizations? Most of them are asking for protection, Dr. Clark continued. They're worried about what happens now that the regional balance of power has shifted so dramatically. Grand Admiral Hayes consulted his strategic assessments. Madam President, we could establish a system of mutual defense treaties. Smaller civilizations get our protection in exchange for trade agreements and basing rights. That sounds like empire building to me, Martha replied carefully. How do we avoid becoming the next threat that someone else needs to prepare for? Commander Roberts stepped forward again. Madam President, maybe the answer is in why we won this war. We didn't win because we were more aggressive than the Zephyrians. We won because we were more prepared. Explain that thought, Commander. We spent 3,000 years getting ready for war while hoping it would never come. Maybe we can spend the next 3,000 years building a galaxy where war becomes impossible. Martha considered this idea. A galactic confederation? With humanity as the senior partner? Not senior, Dr. Clark suggested. First among equals. We provide security and stability, but every member species has a voice in how things are run. Grand Admiral Hayes looked skeptical. That's a lot of trust to place in species we've never worked with before. It's also a lot better than the alternatives, Martha pointed out. We can either rule by force and spend the rest of human history fighting rebellions, or we can build something that works for everyone. The assembly hall buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives discussed the proposal among themselves. Martha waited for them to reach their own conclusions. Finally, the representative from Alpha Centauri stood up. Madam President, I think I speak for most of us when I say that we didn't fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to protect our way of life. Then let's extend that protection to others, Martha replied. Let's build a galaxy where every species can live according to their own values, as long as they don't threaten others. Dr. Clark activated a new display showing the diplomatic initiatives already underway. Madam President, we've received formal requests for Confederation membership from 6 different species already. The Corvin Empire, the Helix Collective, and 4 smaller civilizations. What about the Zephyrians themselves? Martha asked. That's more complicated, Dr. Clark admitted. Their government structure has completely collapsed. It will take years to rebuild their political institutions, Commander Roberts nodded. But when they do rebuild, they'll remember that humanity could have destroyed them completely and chose not to. That might count for something. Martha looked around the assembly hall one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads. We can use our military victory to build an empire based on fear, or we can use our technological advantage to build a confederation based on mutual benefit. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would lead the creation of a galactic confederation, offering membership to any species willing to commit to peaceful coexistence and mutual defense. Grand Admiral Hayes began planning the transition from military occupation to civilian administration. Commander Roberts started working on security arrangements for the new Confederation members. Dr. Clark opened diplomatic channels with every known spacefaring civilization. 6 months later, the Galactic Confederation held its first assembly on Earth. 37 different species sent representatives, including a reformed Zephyrian government that had renounced its imperial ambitions. President Collins delivered the opening address to a truly galactic audience. 3,000 years ago, humanity and the Zephyrian